And welcome to Beacon Roadshow. I am your host, Rich Levesque, and today we are blessed to have the wonderful Dre Meller joining us. Pleasure to have you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be super fun. I've been looking forward to this.
Absolutely. And just off the top, just want to remind you all that you're doing the best you can today with what you have to work with. Whether it feels like it or not, you are enough and you matter. Please take extra special care of yourself today and every day. On Beacon Roadshow, everything is intended to come back to this message, to wrap around this message, because ultimately, we're all doing our best to be our best and to be seen and heard, both by ourselves and by the world around us. The goal for the show is to honor that by speaking of how that works for us and how it can look. It's as individual as we all are, and we'll share stories of how we're navigating these journeys. We'll also talk about skills and tools that are available to help us along in our journeys. And that's the thing, there's no one way for anything. We each have to find what works for each of us, and in our own ways and on our own terms. Like all things, treat this like a buffet table. Remember those? I miss those. My belly doesn't. Take what clicks, leave the rest, and however you come about finding this little corner and however you use it, it's an honor to have you here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a second and I'm going to introduce Dre. Dre is a professionally trained coach, certified Reiki Master, and Akashic Records Practitioner. They are an expert transformation coach helping adults who feel overwhelmed explore their spiritual path and connect with their Cosmic Zen so they can experience more success in life. Dre has been a coach for over 10 years. One of the things they are passionate about sharing with their clients is breaking free from the conditioned thinking that was placed upon you throughout your life. This shedding of layers through spiritual exploration and healing is personal for Dre. They have done the work they teach you. Dre was diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia, and their journey in traditional education left them with a lot of scars and things to heal that weren't true. Dre believed they were dumb for so many years. Those messages totally prohibited Dre from having the success they wanted. That is why Dre is here to help adults who feel overwhelmed learn ways they can truly connect with their inner wisdom for a more successful life. Now, before we get going, I want to talk about unsubscribe for a little bit.
Yes.
Tell us what that is.
I'm super excited about it. It is. Can I talk a little bit about why it's here?
I would love for you to talk about why it's here.
So in 2018, I have to go back. This is like, you got to know the backstory. Otherwise,
you see, you're speaking my language here because when I talk, there's always a side story, a backstory, a front story, a north story, and a south story. So
right?
Go for it.
You gotta, it's all relevant.
Exactly.
So in 2018, I had another version of this business. I started it in 2017. And I ended up in 2018 homeless and pregnant and on my way to bankruptcy. And I was in a place where I felt pretty shitty about life. I was feeling pretty worthless. I was feeling unlovable. And in some really dark places. And I would have little wins here and there, and that was great, but it was just I couldn't hit my stride. There was something that was there, and it kept holding me back. And every time I would go to do something, I would tell myself oh, this is just gonna fail. Even though I was holding so much space for my clients and the people in my life, and people would say, "You're such an inspiration to me." On the inside and behind the scenes, I was falling apart. And so we get to 2019 and I really hit a dark night of the soul. Like literally my ceiling caved in, and like from a rainstorm, I lived in California at the time, and from a rainstorm my ceiling fell down literally on all my stuff. And I knew that like I needed to do something. And so it wasn't, I knew it, but the doing it was not easy. And so that the ceiling fell down. It took me like down a really dark spiral. And yet again, I was in another dark night of the soul. And in March 2019, I decided to actually go off social media, because social media for me is like, can be a double-edged sword. And so I went off of social media. I kind of was in this, place of just becoming the floor. Every day, like, what am I doing? I don't know. Where am I going? And really like existential type of crises. And all the questions like that you ask yourself, like, why am I here? What am I meant to do? What is my purpose? And so I'm part of the floor, and I'm inching toward claiming bankruptcy. And I get to May 2019, my court date to go file, like, where you have to show up and file and say that you're who this person is and all that. So I get to that court date and I'm sitting in there, and I literally walked out of court to parrots. Like, I can't make this shit up. I walk out of court, and there's like a flock of parrots following me down the road. And I'm like, this means something. My husband and I are like, this means something. Parrots don't just show up like
Okay,
that.
that is not a thing you see outdoors unless there's like some sort of a jailbreak in a pet store.
Right. And we were like, this is something. This means something. So I got home and I looked it up. What do parrots mean? And it was speaking toward like, um, I saw it also as using my voice. So my interpretation of it was, you need to use your voice. Spirit was like divinely guiding me to stand up, get up off the floor. Talk about your experiences. You are not the only one out here who has lived this, and it doesn't mean anything about you. You're not a bad person. And so all the things that I was telling myself was really like, I knew I was headed toward that bankruptcy, and it was my rock bottom. It was the place, you think homeless and pregnant would be your rock bottom, but apparently I had more depths to go down into. And it really was this place of just complete surrender. That's the only way I can describe it. Was like me becoming part of the floor was not necessarily giving up, though at some moments it felt like that. It was really a deep surrender. So like, I need help. I need guidance. And so the day that I filed for bankruptcy was the day that I really started to, the parrots, the signs. I started to get a lot of intuitive guidance. And so Unsubscribe was born. So I walked myself through this 30-day process, that just helped me to unsubscribe from all the things I was telling myself, all these conditioned thoughts, these things that, my parents told me, or their parents told them, or my teachers told me, or, things that everybody's doing the best that they can with what they have. And sometimes when we're not healing our own pain and our own trauma, we're passing it on to other people. And so this was like my opportunity to really go within and and heal and heal through these stories and heal through this, super rough time.
That's amazing. Like you've hit on so many different important points. One, particular, like, having to just kind of step away from everything, stepping off of things like social media, and you hit that double-edged sword. And it really is, because it's one of those things. It's a vehicle and it's a tool.
Yeah.
A lot of times we use it where, like we use a lot of things. We're wired to use everything as a comparison.
Yes. Yes. And
Are
to
we doing
define
better than?
us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even if we, you know, streamline our pages so that we can remove a lot of the things that trigger us, we still, because that's just kind of how the brain works. It
Yeah.
works like we don't, it doesn't, the mind doesn't deal in absolutes. It deals in reference points. It doesn't deal with you're doing amazing because you did A, B, C, D, and E. It compares you to your cousin, or it compares you to your siblings, or it compares you to your peer, that person that you were, rivals with in high school back 20 years ago. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we're in that place of that deep comparison, we're not looking authentically at who we are and what we have to offer. And oftentimes it leads us to these places of looking through the windscreen, the windshield of like where we want to go, rather than looking in the rear view mirror at what's behind us and what we've already accomplished. Because like we've all accomplished so much. I have, you have, everybody watching. Like we all have done something, and more than something, a lot of things. And we forget sometimes, like I sit like in that place where I was just looking through the windscreen. I wasn't thinking about like I was, how I was a teen parent and the first generation college student and somebody who went on to get their master's degree and was, juggling different jobs and had like such a determination to go where, like, I had places to go, and all the things that, I wanted to create in my life and that I've created. And when you're looking through the windscreen of where you want to go, sometimes you forget about all that stuff that you've like kicked ass in.
It's true, because whatever happened, we tend to focus on, the times when we were, our balloons were burst and we were deflated. We think about, the time we, didn't make the cut to the baseball
Yeah.
team, or we think of the time we got, rejected, and we think about the time that, and it can be even, now as adults, that's kind of what we go through. um I can, speak for myself. I started a podcast and did like a whole bunch of, posts, and have all kinds of content cranking. I probably had the best week for content I've had in God knows how long. And then my
Mm.
mind is still talking about how somebody basically told me I was a bum earlier in the week. And, it makes no sense, because it's not even, you know, it has
Yeah.
not, ultimately, we don't understand that that stuff has nothing to do with us.
No. And I was, it's so funny you use that word too, because because I associate that with lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a number one thing that a lot of people were called when they were younger, and I was called that too. And it triggers in us, like we have these little spots in us where you can push the little buttons and it takes you right back to those memories, to those like trauma moments, to, the different parts of our brain that are holding on to that. And if you do have a traumatic experience around that, then your memories aren't contained in like one place. Like, so you get triggered and by things that you don't even know you're going to get triggered by. And for me, like that happens so often. But that word lazy, is one that, oh boy, that triggered me So much as and it still kind of does, you know, and I still kind of hear it as a parent, like in my own brain, in my own language of, you know, my daughter was laying in her bed like a queen yesterday while I was vacuuming. And I heard my voice first. Good thing I know now to like wait a second before I
Yeah.
spew. But I heard it in my head where I was like, oh, she's being lazy. And I caught myself. Like, I didn't say those words. 5 years ago, me probably would have spewed that unhealed trauma. But because, like, I'm paying attention now and I'm listening, oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Where did that come from? And I was like, she's just laying there like a queen. Like, this is, you know, in some level, I'm like, this is great. Um,
And it goes back to, it probably triggers back to some point where you were probably laying there like a queen too, and somebody had some, smart ass thing to say about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like where I was actually like doing what I needed to do for myself for like taking care of yourself, right? And and just laying there like a queen. But if we do that, you're like, you know, you get slapped with that, oh, you're lazy. Or for me too, like with ADHD, I would have so many unfinished products and unfinished projects that my parents would be like, oh, you're just lazy. Like you, and you know, I wasn't diagnosed as a kid, so I didn't know like until I was an adult. And I was like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. Let me talk you through it. And, I think this may resonate with you because that a lot of times as a kid, that was my process. My brain was, spinning at like, you know, 90 miles an hour about which thing am I supposed to do, or I might not know necessarily what the next step was. And, in a lot of mine, it was always expected that I'm just supposed to know.
Right.
And, there was that, the anxiety around it. There was a fear of screwing it up. There was that need where I just wanted to just hide. And all these things were going on in my head. And the thing, and you could probably, if you looked really carefully, you could see the smoke coming out. But
Yes.
what it presented itself to was me sitting there like watching TV or playing video games or whatever it was that I was zoning out on,
Yeah.
when what was actually happening within was anything but.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And like that those things can sometimes be like the self-care that we actually need to turn the dial down on our brain, you know, like the coping mechanisms that we develop like throughout our lives because of the way that our brains work. You know, it's our brains are a little bit different um, in the ADHD realm because it's wired differently. So we feel emotions really, really big and for longer than other people. And like that's the thing for me. Like when I get excited or when I get sad or when I feel like I'm there's something that I need to defend, that's like a past version of me, but like the when I felt that as a kid, oh, it was my inner critic would go wild, like just wild. And you started like you could see those moments where I started to attach the story to myself. Like, oh, that's what this means. That must be like I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. And people don't like me. It's like the
Mm,
opposite of the SNL Jack Handy,
yes, I can see that with a mirror now.
right?
And what happens is you kind of we learn to judge ourselves with that, and then kind of as we go forward, it starts becoming really hard to stay in that within ourselves. So we lash out and we
Yeah.
project ourselves on others. We start, with the if this, then that. If
Yeah.
somebody has oh God, you're seeing that, like crazy now because, it's always been there. It's just, with the way the world's kind of going now, it's like it's on steroids. You start seeing, oh, somebody posts this one thing. Oh, they must mean this, and this. And then next thing you
Yeah.
know, you're just attacking them for, whatever thing you took it 3 steps ahead. And then it turns into like this whole dogfight. And then when in the end, you're just trying to you're trying to hear yourself, but you can't because you're blocked with all these old stories. And now
Yeah.
your old story and their old story are having like this street fight match in the middle of a comment page.
It's so true. It's so true. Yes. And I think like that's happening so often now. You're so right on that if then else, like the computer programming. And in some ways, like we're programmed, right? Like
Yeah,
we need to upgrade our system. We need to upgrade our operating system because the way we're operating right now is not in a way that is going to lead us to anything good. Like we really are. I mean, that sounds so ominous, but if we stay on that path of just constant judgment of other people, it's because we're judging ourselves. Like if you have a healthy relationship with you and you love yourself, you start to make different decisions, in my
exactly.
opinion.
And
My humble opinion.
and it gets hard because people will get defensive on this because they've so walled up with these other
Yeah.
excuses that it's impossible for them to see. And you know what? I experience this still myself. There's things that, my blinders are still there at different levels.
No.
I don't have this extra special level or anything like that. It's just I
No.
know I have the because I've been grateful to have people around me that kind of are able to see like um Rich. So you kind of get that blessing of being able to have
Yeah.
people around that kind of can see that, or else you
Yeah.
know
Life is like a true teacher. Like if people aren't around you, then your life will help guide you in that way because it always happens. Like I've seen it with my students. I've been teaching for almost 20 years as well, in addition to coaching. And so I see it all the time in like the kids I work with where I'm like, well, I see what's going on for them and life is becoming their teacher. And of course, like holding compassion, being a compassionate person and deeply caring for my clients and my students, being able to hold that space while they find their solution rather than like me giving them, oh, this is like, that's the thing about my program is that, and all the programs that I create and all the work that I do is you're the expert on your life. I know some things and I can hold the space for you, but I don't know everything. I'm not 100% healed. I'm still a human being in this human experience trying to figure it all the fuck out.
right.
Um,
And we all are, whether we admit it to ourselves or not.
absolutely. And we all have gifts and we all have ways in which we can help the world and help, the people in our lives or ourselves. And that's the thing. It's like tuning into what is your greatest gift and really, you know, just peeling off the layers that are covering that up. And I think there was like an old 80s movie. Was it One Crazy Summer where they had the boat and it was like all covered up and it was like
I
really, and then
think it
they had to
was.
sand it down. I don't know.
I think it was. I got to go back into the Rolodex because that's one. I don't think I've seen that movie in its entirety since I was probably in high school. So we're
Yeah,
going back almost 30 years.
I don't know
Yikes.
why that movie just came up. But it's like this old boat, right? Like we all have an old boat that we're like we can, maybe it's not the best, looking boat right now, but we can fix it up. And then we can use it as our vehicle to, go to the places we want to go to. It's not about being perfect. It's just about, finding your purpose and fulfillment and the things that are going to, make you want to get up in the morning. And for me, it was what is going to help me to want to get up off the floor. Like, to stop being one with the carpet.
I hear that. Even if it's a really comfy carpet, at some point you'd start getting burns, and it's time to
Right.
get up.
It's itchy. It starts to like indent
Yeah.
into your skin. It gets uncomfortable down there.
Now, and kind of in my vision, it's all these things, the way, sticking with the boat analogy, the methods of fixing the boat, the ideas of how it would look like, and all that stuff. I think we all already have that, kind of like you were alluding to. It's already here.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it's just so, so much different stuff all around it that accumulates over through the years that it's hard to find. And it feels like, to me, really good coaching. I'm not a coach. I don't play one on TV, but I've been coached, and I know a lot. I've got a lot of friends in the coaching field, and from what I've picked up on that is a good coach isn't going to tell you how to do things. They're not going to impose their way onto you. They kind of, work as, in some cases a mirror, and they can kind
Yeah.
of be like, you can kind of see yourself in that thing. And also, I think as a spotlight, like a flashlight, they'd be able to,
Yes.
kind of look around and be like, hey, that thing over here.
We might want to look here for a second.
Yeah. And then ultimately it comes down to, it is the work of, the client, or the,
Oh yeah, for sure. For
if the
sure.
client's not on board, it doesn't matter if they're dropping 30K, they're not going to get anything out of it.
Yes, and I can tell you that from experience because I did drop 30K. And it wasn't necessarily the right fit for me either. So that's important for you too. Like, if you're out there and you're like, oh, gee, a coach, like that sounds amazing. Like, make sure that person's a really good fit for you. Like, that they, like, what they have and what they are offering is the fit and something that inspires you. And like, because inspiration and motivation is a part of it, but it's not all of it. But it does have to be like that thing that resonates deeply in your soul, because from experience, that's how I went bankrupt. I left that part of it out. Like, I went bankrupt because I feel like intuitively like dropped me right there, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I was like, all I wanted was the success. Like, I wanted to bite into that success sandwich, and I was gonna do whatever it took to get there. And my ADHD, like marketing for me, like when I get into those situations where someone's really good at marketing, for most of us, not just me, but I'm impulsive. So not only is like, if I'm in a place where there's really good marketing, I have impulses that I'm like, I'm doing that. Like, I want that. I'm going to get that. I'm doing that thing. And oh, okay, you got to go out there. Sorry, we got interrupted.
That's okay.
um, so I'm, in this space of, I lost my train of thought, so I'm backtracking.
All right, we'll just kind of walk it back. We were, talking about, the whole
30K
marketing. Yeah,
impulse
marketing.
marketing. So when that marketing is really good, and I'm like, I'm going to take a bite out of that success sandwich and it's going to taste amazing, then I'm making a decision that might not be the decision that I should make. Like, that's right for me. And so I always like now I have this 48-hour rule where I wait 48 hours, then I make my decisions. But in that case, when I went to the place for the 30K, it was amazing marketing. And they were good coaches. I'm not dissing them at all.
Mhm.
It just wasn't the best fit for me. It wasn't the program, wasn't the best for me. And that's okay because not every coach out there can help you. And right, and if you're a coach, you can't help every single person. We have the people who are attracted to us. That's why I love attraction marketing and like organic marketing, because I want to be with people who are like, yes, I really enjoy you and I can learn from you, and I want to be vulnerable when I'm around you, rather than like, oh, this program is the best program. I don't know, like it might not be that way for every single person on the planet. So for me, I learned the hard way. I jumped into that 30K program thinking that I had a lot of high expectation. I wasn't necessarily ready to be coached in the ways that they were coaching. So, and my business, it was a business mentorship. And my business wasn't at the level where it could kind of be coached in their program, if that makes sense. And so I made a choice that wasn't the best choice for me. And I can now say I had to heal through some stuff like anger around all of that. But I like at this point, it's like water under the bridge. I'm actually grateful that that happened because it taught me a huge lesson. And without that, I probably wouldn't be here talking about unsubscribe. I wouldn't be living in Hawaii. I don't know where I would be or what I would be doing. Maybe I'd still be running my former business and, not helping people in the truest and whole capacity that I could help people. I don't want to say that I needed to be bankrupt and homeless, but I learned a lot from being bankrupt and homeless, that I don't know I would have learned any other way. I'm very stubborn too. So I learned by, um, you know, just
You kind of
fire,
have to have your
basically.
ass kicked a few different times.
I mean, I'm from Philly. So,
Touche.
we've had losing sports teams for ever. It's the wins you can count on one hand.
Yeah, I'm from near Boston. I don't really know what that means. Actually, I lie because my childhood was nothing like how it like. My
Yeah.
childhood was very similar.
Yeah.
I would be watching a Patriots game, in my college dorm with like three buddies from my hometown. And
Yeah.
these are the years they were like winning 2 games a year, and people would walk by and be like pointing at us and laughing at us. And there was plenty of leg
Basically.
room on the bandwagon.
Basically. I'm just gonna go back to when we got interrupted.
Mhm.
So it was such a funny moment because I my 3-year-old bust open the door, and then the almost 2-year-old was like right behind him, and they were both like with these little eyes, like, "What are you doing in there?" And that moment where the man on the BBC, I can't remember who he was, and he was like he didn't have pants on, and so he couldn't get up and like shut the door, and his kid bust in, and then his wife had to come in and get the kid.
Oh man.
That's basically what just happened. That my ADHD was like not gonna let that go. But anyway, I digress.
That's all right.
You're welcome.
Hey, you know what? We all gotta it's in the imperfections that, things happen. I mean, what is perfect anyway?
Nothing. It's perfect is an illusion, right? Like it just doesn't exist. It
No.
really, yeah, I've definitely worked through a lot on perfection. And here's the thing too, like here's a story I had for myself with ADHD. I didn't think that I was a high achiever. And like, of course, I was a high achiever. Like most people with ADHD are. Like we're like working double time, sometimes triple time, like getting shit done. Um, and like all the beautiful ways that we've learned to help ourselves. And man, when I realized I was a high achiever, I was like, tell me tell me more. It was like in a therapy session, and I was like, tell me more about how I'm a high achiever. I want to hear about this.
Right?
um and when I saw it, I was like, whoa, that's a story of perfection, of like what I think is perfect. And wow, like how much space have I held in my life for that? And when we're holding space for those things that don't exist, how much stuff we miss out on sometimes. Like the laying on the couch like a queen.
Right. And that whole trying to find the perfect moment to to start a project, or
Yeah,
create a program, or start a show. There is the perfect time is when you actually go and do it.
that's right.
And and it and in and of itself, it's about the journey of it. It's not about the results. No matter how much the world tries to tell you differently, and it likes to try to tell you differently.
That's so true.
And how many people get, how many inventions, how many different things got derailed because somebody said this is stupid, or how many shows got derailed right away because nobody watched it the first 6 weeks. I mean,
Yeah, and the stories you tell yourself when that happens. I mean, I here's the thing, like, I've unsubscribed from a lot of my stories, not all of them. I still have stories. I'm a human. But the things that I've like my biggest story of being unworthy, of being, not good enough, they become, it's not that they go away. They just don't have the power that they used to anymore. So you get to this place where you're like, okay, I'm listening, I hear you, but it's not hitting me right in the same way as it used to. It's not in the control tower anymore. It's not jumping into the driver's seat and saying, all right, this is where we're going. You're able to kind of see it and acknowledge it, give it a hug, and and let it go in that moment. And you got to hold on to your dreams. And really, I mean, I don't know, like what were your dreams when you were a kid? Like what did you want?
oh gosh, when I was little, it was oddly enough, it was that I wanted to, if the things I would do all the time were write,
Mm,
draw, and pretend I'm doing radio. And the writing, I used to like write different stories. I had these like my life was like a constant. I was constantly creating these like fantasy worlds with like these different characters, and like things that would just kind of like web off, and like no 5-year old should be having like all these offshoots of all this crazy stuff. But like that's where my mind goes.
that's
And I was happier in my own world than I was dealing with my peers. I was and I, so I had a lot of that going. And also, it just so happened that, my parents happened to be friends with people that worked in local radio stations.
mm,
So, there was like an event or like a staff cookout or stuff like that. We would end up getting, get hooked into it. And I was just like enamored with it. And I really, you know, like
Yeah.
I created like I had like a couple different toys, and I turned one thing into a microphone, and I turned another thing into a switchboard, and I was just talking to people, and in my mind people were talking to me, and then eventually it was just kind of like, all right, you need to knock it off and go throw a football around now, son.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that conditioning, right? Like that we have to be the certain way. Yeah. Of like, okay, like now that's enough. That's enough of that. And now look at your passions in your life. You're so good at hosting and writing. I know that's something that you're doing as well,
it
right?
was, and yeah, like I kind of got talked out of that, and one of the things I was always taught, when I was going through high school and college was you're a terrible writer. You write the
Mm,
way you talk. Like, you need to avoid anything that involves writing because
really?
you're so bad at it. Like, people would tell me I
Wow.
was like the worst writer in like the history of ever. So I learned to avoid anything that involved, like, I would drop classes, I would take zeros, I
I can
would,
relate.
and I got to the point where, there's a point in college where I wouldn't start writing until I had a six pack in me
Wow.
because the anxiety wouldn't come down enough until I was able to do that.
Yeah. And what's writing like for you now? How's that?
Um, Now, and it was kind of like, it was one of those things where I kind of got forced into it. I had a really good therapist that called me out on my bullshit one day, and I was bucking her and being a pain in the ass in a session and dodging her questions, and she's like, "All right, well, then go write about it and bring it in next week." And then I went into like freak out mode. I'm like, I can't do that. I suck at this. Oh, I'll give you the numbers of all 70 of my teachers that told me how terrible I was, and she's just like, no, no,
Yeah.
you're gonna go and you're gonna do it, and you're gonna bring it in, and I'm going to actually make sure the receptionist knows that you can't cancel your appointment, and if you no show, I'm going to send the cops to your house. Fine. But you know what? I hemmed and hawed, and then I started, and then I went into a role,
Mm,
and I'm kind of like, I the stuff came out, and I felt really good about it, but I was just kind of like, all right, I'm gonna give this to her. She's gonna see how terrible I was. She's gonna come up with another plan next week. And she looks at it. She looks at me, dead. She goes, "You're really good," and I'm just kind of like, I'm paying you to say that. And I couldn't take the feedback. I couldn't take
yeah.
it. And so we,
Yeah.
we kept doing it. And like the third or fourth week in, I had written something, and she started crying. I'm like,
Mm,
wait a minute, hold on. Like, I'm kind of a pro at this. I know this is no. I'm the patient. I'm the one that's supposed to be crying about some crazy shit. It's not supposed. No, wait, hold on. And then from there, I finally started getting the confidence to start, putting some stuff on my pages. And then it really, like, my inbox would blow up of people being like, this is me, this is me, and this is me. And then I kind of started to build up. And then all of a sudden, I, I have, website, and I have a book, and I have all this other stuff. And now it's kind of like, that's my thing. That's like everything
yeah.
starts. Like,
It's
I
like,
do a lot of videos and I do a lot of this stuff now, but everything starts with that mindset. I have to think it through as a writer. I have to write it out before I can process it.
yeah. That's amazing. That is like true proof of, when you ditch that story, and it's not easy. Like the fact that it wasn't like cognitively we know these things. We know like on some level, okay, this isn't good for me, but that trauma gets stored in our bodies. It becomes a part of like the way our brain is wired. And so we have to do some of the work, unfortunately, to untangle it and unravel it and be able to look at it and sit with it in the room and say, okay, I know why you're here. and thank you for all of the love and support that you tried to give me, but I don't need this anymore. I don't need you to keep me safe like this anymore, right? Because your
Right.
brain was like, all right, I'm just going to keep Rich safe. Like, we're just going to keep you safe. We're going to keep you from that place of hurt and pain. And, sometimes that's our
And
shadow and our critic.
and also too, that's that conundrum. That's that, it's people, they're so desperate to be seen and to be
Yeah,
heard, but also on the other hand, what's their biggest desire is also their biggest fear.
absolutely.
And ultimately, this is kind of why it's why I do what I do and why I talk about what I talk about
Yeah,
and
I
why I
love
bring
it.
people on with all these different voices that can, help to, have all the tools and all the talent to kind of, hit those points for people. Hey, this can be me. I've been there, and I've, somebody will, watch this, even, even if it takes like 6 or 8 months, they're gonna be like, holy crap, I relate to Dre's story, and I can, and they can do that. Why the hell can't I?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing, right? Like, I think both of us have that vibe where if we can do it, we have this mindset of, if we can do it, then you can get here too. Like, you can do it too. And that we're all in it together, right? It's a process. And that it's not like a hierarchy of like, oh, I'm here and you're here. It's like this very equal, like, um way of seeing things. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about you, is you have like a super down to earth vibe, and you're just like an amazing, like, very open person. It's really easy to talk to you. It's really easy to be on your show, and to be in your presence, and to be in your group, and to read the things that you read, because I can relate to so much of it. Like, you're not there's nothing there where you're like, oh, this is my phone voice. And like, you never get to the real Rich. Like, of course we all have like different layers of ourself, where like we have our like more professional like person, and then like our family person, like our families
Right.
see like the
Yeah, we
the
all do.
the relax, take your hair down, whatever. Everybody has that. But I really appreciate like how much of your realness that you bring to the table and to the world, because it's so powerful and so amazing. And just in the short amount of time that I've gotten to know you, like, that's incredible. And I didn't know that about like, you had that story about your writing. And so to me, that's just even so much more, makes you so much more incredible. Like, that was, one of the biggest hurdles that you had. Well, at least maybe assuming, but a big hurdle that you had to jump over to get to where you are now. That's beautiful.
It's much appreciated, and it's, it's an honor to have, somebody like you who has, that has all these stories and can really relate. Like, I can really see how you would really relate to your clients incredibly well, because you know what it's like to be, as you put it yourself, on that floor. You know what that feels like. What you know what work it entails to take those steps back up. So how you can hold, hold that container for somebody who's, going up. You know when to hold the mirror, and you know
Yeah,
when to hold the spotlight, and you know when to hold the ladder at the bottom so they don't, sway as they're climbing.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I'm looking at the clock, and I know you're a little under the gun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change gears a little bit, and we're going to do a couple, a little rapid fire lightning round with some silly
All
questions.
right. I love
First,
silly questions.
yeah, first answer that comes up.
All right. It's like the
All right.
Rorschach.
Yeah, and I say this with apologies to Lewis Howes and apologies to James Lipton. But if you could jump into a time machine of your choice and go back to one event and you can go and see it in person, an experience in person, what would it be?
Martin Luther King's "I Had a Dream" speech.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, what's the one thing that if you don't experience it or get it, your whole day goes right off track?
Meditation.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it even if places with drive-throughs aren't your thing anymore, is there still one that you go by and you kind of just like, yeah, I can't turn, I can't turn, I can't do this.
Checkers. I think it's Rallies in some other places. In Philly, it's Checkers, or it was.
Nice. Doesn't have any era. Um, a sitcom family you'd like to be adopted by.
Mm, the Goldbergs.
Nice one, good one. What brings joy?
Oh, my kids, my family, the beach. Yeah.
What brings peace?
I think doing this work, my heart feels so fulfilled and peaceful and zen, like when I'm able to help people. So teaching and coaching definitely bring me peace.
What brings hope?
Ah, teaching young people. Yeah.
That's mine too. And last question is, what is the one thing you want people to think of first when they see you or think about you?
The Cosmic Zen squirrel.
Nice. I love that, by the way. Cosmic Zen Squirrel.
It's a brain baby. I don't know. It was like poof, it was there.
Unsubscribed is the name of her program, and you can connect with Dre at spirituallyawakened.com. She's also on Facebook and the Gram. These are the addresses here, and they're going to be in the introductions for both the podcast and the YouTube. And also, I am at beaconroad.net. If you're so inclined, my Patreon is Beacon Road. And I'm also on the usual suspects, the Twitter, the Gram, and the Zuckerbook. And Dre, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much. This was super fun. I don't know how 50 minutes has gone by. This was amazing. Thank you. And thanks to everybody who watched.
You're welcome. You take care, and thank you all for all those who stopped by live and all those who will on the replay. Our most we talk about money and we talk about stuff, but our most important the most important thing we have is time. Time is limited, and the fact that you spent 50 minutes hanging out with us, it's an honor. Thank you. Be safe, be well, and take care.